Beavemanites and Docutrons, assemble!
Okay, so back in the day, I was way above the wave, and I traded in the girls for the video games. I played so much Super Smash Bros. Other kids called me names. They called me Mike.
All right, well, I guess we're recording. Welcome, Beavemanites and Docutrons, to this week's podcast. This is the Beaveman,
I'm
and
the
with me
doc.
as always is the Doc. This episode is brought to you by Renegade Beaver Studios Mobile, because I'm not at home. I'm in Marquette, Michigan. For those of you who don't know, that is in the Upper Peninsula. That's right, Michigan. It's kind of in two parts.
It's like a giant bazaar, right? Like the big market.
The big, Marquette, sure,
Yeah,
whatever.
Marquette.
Marquette. I got you. I understand
I
what
was
you're
playing
saying.
with the words.
I don't know if they consider that to be humorous here.
Oh, well, probably not.
Hey, it's pretty interesting though. Up here in the UP, I haven't heard any UP accents yet.
No, because it's not Canada.
No,
Although
man, you've never heard the accents up here.
I didn't notice any when we were up there back in April.
When I was in Munising, I heard it all the time. When I was in Grayling, I heard it all the time. And now, but I'm in Marquette, which is even farther, west and north, I guess you would say. But I haven't heard any. I haven't heard any A or nothing like that.
Well, one of the biggest things that I was impressed with is the condition of the roads up there. They are amazing.
Well, that's because there's part of the year that they don't drive.
Yeah, well, still, I mean, everywhere here in Michigan that I've seen so far is total shit for roads, and up there it was like brand new pavement.
Well, I think they
everywhere.
just don't have as many roads as us, so they have less that they have to focus on.
Could be.
I mean, there's only two highways, two
Yeah.
major highways, I think. Whatever. Anyway, that's where I'm at. I'll be here for 4 months. Yeah, I forgot my little soundproofing mechanism or apparatus, if you will. So I have my microphone inside my lunch bag. Seems to be working okay.
Well, as long as you're not eating your microphone, you should be fine.
Yeah, I'm fine. So what's going on in the world, Doc?
Well, getting ready to go to nursing school, so I've got all kinds of footwork I have to do to meet
That's
the
all
requirements.
about you, isn't it? I said what's going on in the world, and all you care about is you going to nursing school.
That's right. That's where my mind is at, where my focus is, like a laser.
You got laser focus? That sounds
Yeah.
familiar. Is that like a Trumpian thing?
I don't know.
Laser focus. And it's beautiful. Whatever.
I can't save the world, but I can maybe save one at a time here and there, if I'm lucky.
Or maybe not. Never know. You could just be wiping some serious behind.
God, I hope not.
Oh, you
We'll
still
see.
do that. You'll still do that. It's good for you. I got a list. I got a couple lists. What do you think? Want to go through some lists?
Well, you can see a speech therapy about it.
I said list, not lisp, you idiot. And by the way, you were out of control on the last podcast. Let me just tell you. You were highly offensive.
How's that?
I mean, you were just extremely offensive. You were popping off, saying all kinds of questionable things. It was a fun time.
Oh, you're referring to your stand-in.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that one was more interesting. I'm sorry. My paper doc was more interesting. Oh, that's right. Paper doc.
That's why I don't remember any of that shit.
Tongue depressor doc. Yes, they were a lot of fun.
Were they offensive? Like you?
Yes, they were offensive, but in a good way. Offensive in an entertaining way.
Oh, well. Someday I'll have to listen to it.
Right. All right, so let's imagine, if you will. Let's just imagine. Let's say that we're both rich and famous.
That's a nice dream.
Yeah, say we're rich and famous and equally as famous as anybody else, and so therefore I'm going to bring up this list of people that might be fun to hang out with, and you tell me yay or nay.
Okay.
And we'll go with why. So in other words, let's just in other words, let's say that we're not impressed by fame, fortune, or anything like that. We're just looking at purely what we think these people are like and whether or not you'd want to have a beer with them or something else. Because I don't really drink beer. So for me, it would be like, do I just want to hang out with them, have a rum and coke, and have a chat?
Okay,
All right, are you ready?
I'm ready.
The first one, Robert Downey Jr.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to have beer with him.
Okay,
I think
no.
he's funny.
Okay, I say no. All right, why do you say yes?
Um, because I've seen what he's like off camera, or well, not off camera, when he's not in the movies, and the way he talks to people. I think he'd be fun.
Okay, well, we don't have to agree. I'm going to say no.
And why is that?
I don't think he'd be very interesting.
Well, you think he's an arrogant ass, or what?
Well, I didn't say that because obviously I'm saying that, like I said, our fame or whatever has nothing to do with anything. So I'm
Well,
not
he
looking
is.
at him whether he's famous or rich or anything like that. I'm just like saying as a person, somebody that I might find interesting, I'm going to say no to Robert Downey Jr.
He is a little bit arrogant, I'll admit, but I I I find I like that about him. So
So you think that, hanging out with him, with an arrogant type person, you'd be cool with?
yeah, I think so. I don't think it's something that would go overboard and be a problem.
Okay, that's fine. Like I said, we don't have to agree. All right, number 2. I got a shitload of them. Tom Hanks.
Yeah, I think he's okay as long as he's not being political. Yeah, I could hang out with him.
Well, let's say, okay, let's change it like this. Let's say, would you really want to hang out with him? Not just saying, maybe. I'm like, would you really, is this somebody you'd really want to hang out with?
Probably not.
Okay, so I'd say yes.
Only because he's very often political in a lot of the things that he talks about, and I don't think I would enjoy talking about that sort of thing with him.
Well, if you're going to have people that talk about political stuff, don't you usually just tell them I don't want to talk about political stuff?
Yeah, but a lot of people on that side of the political fence don't give a shit. They'll do what they want,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I'd rather avoid that.
Well, because we're rich and famous and well known, we would just say, hey, dude, I don't want to talk about political shit. That's
I
kind of
think
how I
all
feel about it.
actors should say that. I don't want to talk about political shit. I'm an actor, not a politician.
I'd like to hang out with Tom Hanks, but I think that I would be strictly focusing on his days in Bosom Buddies, and that's what I'd want to talk about.
That show was hilarious.
That show was hilarious, and that was a great. That's my favorite portrayal of him in general. All right, how about this one, Morgan Freeman?
Oh yeah,
Okay, I agree with that one.
6 days a week at least.
Yeah, I think there would be so many things you could actually talk to him about. Just a broad spectrum of things that you could go on and on. Just he would be somebody that I would really, really enjoy chatting with. Do you know he's
Well,
81 years old?
Oh, I didn't realize he was that old. He's a
Yeah.
big science. He's a big science fiction and science buff.
Yeah, and science. Yeah, science in general. I mean,
I
yeah.
would
Historian.
enjoy talking about that sort of thing with him.
Oh,
I feel like
absolutely.
I would learn something.
It would be like I don't know if he's on this list or not, but it'd be kind of like chatting, in my opinion, with an older, more learned, or more not learned necessarily, a wiser version of like Neil deGrasse Tyson. Who
Yeah,
I also think would be
Neil
a lot
deGrasse
of fun.
Tyson. I could take him or leave him. You know, I don't really like the guy.
Well, I don't think he's on our list. All right, here's this next one. I consider this next one. I'm going to guess. I'm going to guess for you, and I'm going to say that you're going to say yes to this one, and I'm going to
What's
say
her
that
name?
I'm also going to say yeah. That I'm also going to say yes to this one. If you say no to this one, I'll be shocked.
Okay, I'm listening.
Bill Murray.
Yes, I would hang out with him anytime.
Yes, I would emphatically hang out with him, and I would pester him because we're both equally famous in this scenario. I would pester him nonstop to do his bit from the Caddyshack, and probably Stripes also.
He's
And
lining
probably
up in the
Ghostbusters.
ball. He's
Yeah,
a Cinderella story.
I'd probably nonstop. I'd be like, do it again, man. Come on, do it again. Do it again. Come on, man. Yeah, he's awesome. Okay, how about this one here? Steve Buscemi.
I don't really know that much about him. I like the characters he plays, but as far as him, yeah, I don't know. Probably not.
I would say, yeah. I like the characters he portrays. I think that probably deep down, he's actually probably a really decent dude. Probably more decent than most people in Hollywood. That's just my perception of him. How about Hugh Jackman?
Nah, nah. I like him as Wolverine, but aside from
No,
that, it's like, again, it just I don't know. Something
but that's
about him,
it.
it just doesn't match.
Yeah, he probably wouldn't like you either.
Maybe not.
I'm gonna say yes. How about Michael
I
J.
don't want to
Fox?
piss him off and get disemboweled by them huge claws. Anyway, Michael J.
That's a
Fox.
character,
I know. I was making another joke and it didn't work.
and it was
Um,
hilarious.
Michael J. Fox. Yeah, yeah, I probably would. I think I would. I'd be
Wow,
interested just to get to know more
you
about
guys
him.
really taking a long time to think about it.
Well, he hasn't done a whole lot recently.
Okay, well, moving on. Moving on. Here's another interesting thing that I found this week. Would you crap if your kid said this to you? These are creepy things that kids say. Has your kids ever said anything creepy to you?
Unintentionally taken out of context, yes, but once they explain it, then it's actually funny after that.
Like what, do you think?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Well, I know once when my son was little, I was tucking him into bed and we were sitting there and chatting and I got done reading them stories and he's like, "Who's that little boy?" And I about shit when he said that because he was like staring like beyond me when he said it. And I'm like, "What the fuck are you?" So, that really quick thought that goes through your mind, like, what the fuck is he talking about? Is this place haunted? Or, you have this, I guess I would say it's a unrealistic thought process at the time. And so I freaked for that very brief moment, but then I turned around and looked, and he was looking at the Pampers box that had a little boy on the Pampers box. So I was like, oh, okay, good. So I had that brief chilling moment, but then it went away quickly.
I don't know about creepy, but there was one time my oldest boy was in preschool, and we asked him when we picked him up. We asked him, "So what did you do today?" He says, "We had sex on the table." What?
What?
We had sex on the table, and he repeated it. I was like, okay. So my wife and I we went back in and we talked to the teacher, trying to figure out where he got this idea to say something like that. And after talking it over in front of him and the teacher, and we realized he was saying snacks. He was saying sex
Ah,
instead of snacks. Snacks on the table.
gotcha.
So yeah, that was a big relief when we figured out what was going on there. We were all laughing about it afterwards. We still tease him about that today.
Which one was this? The oldest one or the youngest one?
Oldest one.
Oh, the oldest one. Okay. Well, now he's probably having sex on the table.
Not my table.
Well, that's nice and smooth.
And my younger boy, one time he ate a lot and he said, "My belly feels old." So I thought that was a pretty interesting thing for a kid to say. I've never heard it described that way.
Was he looking at you at the time?
No, no.
Let's see if this would creep you out. I'll read this scenario for you. While changing my daughter in front of the open closet door, she kept looking around me and laughing. I asked her what was so funny. She said, "The man." To which I replied, "What man?" She then pointed at the closet and said, "The man with the snake neck." I turned around and nothing was there. I'm afraid to look into the history of my house to see if anyone hung themselves in the closet.
That's it.
That's it.
No.
Would that
Um,
creep you out if your kid said that?
no, kids are creative.
Kids are creative. Kids are
They make
creative. They just say random shit.
they do.
What if
They
you
do.
looked up the history of your house and somebody had hung themselves in the closet?
Well, then I might be a little creeped out, but I suppose as long as the ghost isn't doing anything like harmful, I'd leave him
Uh,
alone.
Other than giving your kid a psychological problem?
How's that a psychological problem?
If your kid sees dead people all the time, yeah, that might be fine when you're little. But everybody grows up and has everyone tell them how freaking fucking nuts that is.
There are. Then you just teach him to keep it to himself.
Oh, so repress it.
No, just don't go telling everybody what you see. It's okay to talk to me. It's okay to talk to family.
So if you're,
There,
that's a
I
weird.
believe I believe that supernatural abilities exist, and there are so few people that have them that the smart ones are gonna keep it to themselves. They're not gonna let people know that they have those abilities, because as soon as people know that those abilities exist, then they're gonna want to try and use them and manipulate you to do things in their favor. So, I mean, imagine if you were a psychic. How many psychics or how many people out there claim to be psychic? And 99.99999% of them are probably total bullshit. But that one in a
99.
million,
The 1 in 100 million. Yeah.
yeah, one in whatever, big number, they're the real deal, and they would do well to keep it to themselves instead of letting the world know what they can do.
Hmm. Perhaps. I would
I
say
mean,
though,
haven't you
but
seen
if I had
Firestarter?
that, yeah, but well, that's totally different. If for example, if you saw dead people, kind of like the kid in The Sixth Sense, do you think
Yeah.
he was too happy with the fact that he got to see creepy dead people all the time, like they were, whether they were nice or not? Would you really want to see somebody who's got their throat cut every day?
Well, it depends. Maybe I could help them, like he did.
Yeah, I'm not talking about that. You'd still have to see it. Who wants to see dead people all the time?
I don't know. I don't think it'd bother me all that much.
Oh, really? You're
I
like,
don't.
even if they were buddies with you, you're like, okay, you just startled the fuck out of me when you open the bathroom door and somebody who hung themselves is in there and you get to see them hung all the time. You're like, okay, that's a little creepy.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, but you're like, hey, Stu,
There
how's
would
it
be
going?
pros and cons, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Probably maybe a few more cons, but overall, I mean, what can you do about it? Probably nothing.
Ask them to leave and stop scaring the fuck out of you. That's what I would be doing. I don't know.
Chances are they're there for a reason, and simply asking them to give up on that reason, not very likely that they
What if
would
the chances
comply.
are that they're there just to scare the fuck out of you?
Well, then it's working.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, what other possible reason could you have to be like? Okay, if you have no reason other than to be here, like, if I got to help you get on with it, then could you please appear in some other form?
Oh, wow, you scared me, so you can go now. Bye. If that was your goal.
Mission accomplished. Thanks much, asshole. Please move along. Have you ever run into anybody that claimed to have psychic abilities that you were pretty sure was a nut job, or that actually might have something going on for them?
I met a guy when I was in the Navy. Um, I was dating this girl, and she was
Top or
living with
bottom?
this married couple, and she invited me over, and we went over there. And first time, the dude was sitting on his living room floor carving driftwood, and I thought, oh, he's an artist. And uh, after asking him, so what you making? He says, oh, I'm making a wand. Really? Oh. So he started explaining all of this Wiccan stuff to me, and I thought it was just total crap. And his wife comes walking out of the other room, buck ass naked, and I was like, "What?" And nobody even batted an eye that she did that. I was the only one that was like looking shocked, like at what I saw. So later, my car was having some trouble. I got stuck on on the highway, and this was in Virginia, and I tried to call the girlfriend to come help me out. Well, she didn't answer the phone. He did. So he says, I'll come help you out. We'll work out, whatever the costs are later."
And he was
So
okay. So let me back up here. So your girlfriend was involved with this guy in what way?
they were living in the same house.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And there's more to the story. I'm
Was
I'm
he wanding
summarizing.
her? Was he wanding her?
I don't think so.
No.
I
Okay.
don't think so.
We don't, but we don't know for sure. You can't say that for sure. You don't know.
I can't say it for sure, but they were all friends.
Maybe that's what he was
So
whittling. Maybe he was really whittling a dildo, and he calls those a wand. And he's
it's gonna
really
get
cheap. He's just
a
very cheap guy.
splintery dildo.
Well, maybe if he varnishes it really well, sands it really well, and just continuously varnishes it. He's going
uh,
old school, cheap way. I don't know.
I don't even want to imagine that.
Please
That's
continue with
that's
your story. Did you ever get a splinter in the end of your penis and wonder how it got there?
no.
How about sap on your penis? Did that ever happen?
No.
Varnish.
Well, it depends on what you consider varnish.
Did you ever have the head of your penis stuck to your belly?
No.
No. Okay. Please continue with your story.
Okay. Anyway, so dude came out and he helped me out with my car,
And was he naked?
and no, he was fully clothed at this point.
Okay.
So
You're like,
my
at
car's
this
sitting on
point,
the
he
highway,
was fully
and
clothed at this
we
point.
realized
But later, when he asked for the payment, I didn't understand what he meant. Okay.
that
That
it
you
was the
hadn't, that you didn't have a key in the ignition.
serpentine belt was broken on my car. So he drove me down to the gas station, and I was able to buy another serpentine belt. While we were at the gas station, he bought a lottery ticket, and he says, "I'm going to explain why I did the lottery ticket after we go back and replace the belt on your car." So we took the belt out. We managed to get it hooked back up on the car because he had some tools in his trunk, and I was able to drive home. Well, later that day, he scratched off that lottery ticket and he won $100. And he said, "I wanted to demonstrate to you that the good things you do will come back to you 3 times over." And it goes the same for the bad. So, I mean, coincidence? Sure, could be. But could there be some merit to what he was saying? Maybe. I don't know. But yeah, there was later after I was just before I left the Navy, just before I came home, I was going to stop over there. Or I went to try and stop over to that house because the girlfriend, she was getting ready to head out on deployment. She was in the Navy as well, and
You found her whittling his wand.
she she wasn't there.
Oh.
Neither were they. In fact, the house they were in was boarded up. I knocked on the door, and the neighbor's like, "What are you doing? Nobody's lived there in months." I was like, "Just here a few weeks ago."
So why had it been so much time between the time you saw were you like out to sea or something and you hadn't
Yeah,
seen her for a while?
yeah. It's one of those things.
Well, maybe they moved right. Well, how did you know she was going out on deployment then?
Because we talked about our schedules.
Are you sure this person actually existed? Like, it
Yeah.
wasn't just in your mind. You're like, oh, this is my friend. And I'm like, is your friend here right now? Because I don't see anybody. Is it
No,
one of those things?
they definitely existed.
Uh-huh. And so what do you think happened? Do you think they just why would the house be boarded up? That's for one thing. That's really weird. Why would the house be
I
boarded up?
I don't know. I can't explain it.
I mean, was it hurricane season?
No,
No. And where were
no.
you stationed?
What it was in March or April.
Where were you
So
stationed?
Norfolk.
Where's that? Virginia?
Yeah. Well, they were over on the Little Creek side where the shipyard is.
So I don't understand, I guess, the whole thing with, oh, this will come back to you threefold or whatever. So did you get like 3 more bad things or 3 worse things that happened to you other than your car not being able to start?
No, it's just he was. I talked to a lot of people when I was in the Navy. I talked to a lot of people about religion and different religious aspects. I considered myself a Christian, and I had one friend who was just a hardcore atheist, and then of course the girlfriend there that I was seeing for a while, she considered herself a Wiccan, and she described uh, she described the others, the man and his wife, as being part of her coven, as they described. And I thought it was weird, but you know, her and I had a lot of fun, so I overlooked it. but
Gotcha.
but they were genuinely nice people, so I can say that about them. As far as whether or not I believe in the real deal, as I was describing earlier, that's another matter. I don't know if I'm convinced.
Sounds like the guy was just a douchebag.
You
That's what
think
it sounded
so?
like to me. Yeah, he was just a tool. Anyway, okay. So what other creepy, freaky experiences? Well, that's not really creepy. Although the guy, I don't know. Do you really need to be whittling a wand when I show up?
I that was just an awkward moment.
Well, seriously, because it's like, what would I equate that
Well, I
to?
didn't want to offend a man in his own house. You know what I mean?
I guess, but did he know you were coming over?
Uh, Maybe. I don't know.
Well, I mean, if he didn't know you were coming over, that's one thing. But if he knew you were coming over, what's the point of doing that? Other than
I'm
having to show
guessing.
off for somebody that you want them to know that, oh, I'm whittling a
I'm
wand right
guessing
now.
no, he didn't know. Now the wife might have been showing off. She looked pretty good walking across the room,
I
but
believe they call that skyclad. That's what it's called.
streaking.
If they're naked, they call it being skyclad.
I've never heard that referred to that way.
Yeah, look it up. It's I pulled that out of my data bank in my brain somewhere. I
Hmm.
could be wrong. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? All right. Let me tell you my story, my intriguing story. It's very
There's
disturbing.
there's more to that story, but I don't want to share
Oh,
it
please tell
publicly.
us. No, please tell us. Let's hear
No,
more.
I can't. I
Oh my
can't.
God, you're such a wuss.
Yeah, I know.
Good Lord. What are you protecting? You think she's gonna come back and they're gonna what happened in what was it, The Craft? What do you think you're gonna do? She's gonna like fly and the doors are gonna burst open and she's gonna fly
I'm
in
not.
on a freaking string?
I'm not afraid of. I'm not afraid of that. It's just some things are personal. I want to keep them personal.
Oh, so lame. Okay, whatever.
But if she is out there, her name is Chris, and if she is out there and she hears this, please contact us because I would really like to say hi.
Oh, you really like to say hi, would you? Is
Yes,
that
I
all
would.
you want to do? Is just say hi?
Maybe.
Uh-huh. Well, you said we. You said so you're saying I want to say hi? Or what we are you talking about?
Did I say we?
Oh, you did say we.
Oh shit. No, I meant
Yes.
I.
Oh,
Me, my,
sure.
me, myself, and I.
Oh
Yeah,
no, I
we.
know where your dirty little brain goes.
I'm schizophrenic, and so am I.
Right. Okay. Um well, if you're listening, Chris, to Beaveman and the Doc, one, I don't know how you would know that Doc is known as the Doc. So yeah, that doesn't really help you out very much. I don't know how she would
Well,
identify you.
she would remember me asking about the black candles.
But don't you think a lot of people have had that conversation?
Um,
Yeah, I would
Not
say
that
so.
we're in the Navy, stationed in Norfolk, and I think the ship she was on was the L.Y. Spear.
So
God help me, I can't
she was
remember her
riding the
last
tip
name.
of the spear.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Now
whatever
she was
happened to
cool
you,
though. I
Chris?
liked her.
What happened to you, Chris? What happened? Why was the house boarded up? Let's speculate. Does it
Maybe
have
I had the wrong
something to do
address.
with? Yeah, I was gonna say. I was like, does it have something to do with the fact that Doc took a wrong turn? It was actually in a condemned part of the neighborhood, and she was still in the house, and he just didn't know where he was going. That's probably more accurate, in my opinion.
If that was the case, then she probably thought I was ditching her.
Well, probably, but I'm sure she got along just fine with somebody else's wand.
Oh, sure. I if I had the opportunity back then, I would have got her phone number so I could keep in touch. So that was that.
How did you get in contact with her in the first place if you didn't have her phone number?
Um, because I hung out at the rec center on my in my free time, and she was there too. So
Yes.
a lot of my friends were on the same ship with her.
Okay. Yeah, I did a lot of hanging out at the rec center when I was in the army. No, I
Hey,
didn't.
it was a low budget method of having fun. Besides, that's where all the people who like to play Dungeons
Yeah,
and
I knew
Dragons
you
hung
were
out.
going there. I knew that's where you were going. I knew that's how what was. I knew that was what was coming because I was like, who fucking hangs out at the rec center? You know, let me say this: in the army, yeah, we didn't hang out at the rec center. Okay, even in no. Some people did. The Beaveman did not. Would you like to hear my scary tale?
Have at it.
I was dating this girl, and she was staying with these people, and I walked in, and some dude was carving this wooden dildo in the middle of the floor.
uh, I think
She introduced me, and I was like, "What the fuck are you doing, weirdo?" He's like, "I'm building hi, how's it going? I'm carving a wand out of driftwood." At that point, my fist met his face, and he crumpled like a little bitch. And I was like, "What the fuck is wrong with that weirdo?" Then this hot chick came out of the room naked, and she was like, "Oh my god, you're so hot." And I was like, "Yes, I am. Thanks for noticing." And then I walked away with both girls. End of story. And that is the truth, as I see it.
As I recall, you saying that you have never had a threesome. So,
Oh no, I walked out with both girls. That doesn't mean I had a threesome. It just means I walked out like the Fonz, and I was like, "Hey."
oh, okay. Now, see, if that were me walking out with both girls,
Which wouldn't
I would have
happen.
sealed. I would have closed the deal.
Uh-huh. I think you close the deal with a wand where going where you know it shouldn't go.
I would not. I don't think I would go for the bad threesome.
Yeah, the bad threesome. We agree that is the bad threesome. No. So here's my story. It's not that interesting. But I was, I don't know. I was in elementary school and I was supposed to have a baseball game. So I went to go to this baseball game, but there was nobody there. So I called my grandma, and my grandma came to get me, and she took me to the bar with her to have a Coke. And then she said, "Well, it's got to be time for your baseball game now." So we drove up to the baseball game. She dropped me off. Somehow or other, the baseball game was almost already over with. I couldn't even play. I just sat there. They had like one inning left. So I don't know how there was this time difference or whatever. So the game ends. I'm sitting there. My grandma's gone. I'm like, there's no way she's going to come back for like an hour because that's how long baseball games are when you're that little. But she pulled right in after the game was over. And I went up to get in the car, and she said, "I just had a feeling that your baseball game was over. That's why I came back."
Huh?
And my
Maybe.
grandmother actually was scared. My grandmother thought that she was psychic. She always had these little weird things happen to her. She told me about some of them, which are kind of creepy. Most of it was like precognitive stuff, but it freaked her out. So she was actually, she thought that was a gift from the devil, so it freaked her out.
No, I think it's just a gift. Honestly, I mean, I bet you. I bet you there are a lot of psychic people out there. They just don't know it or trust in it enough. Like, haven't you ever been driving down the road and then realized you were speeding, suddenly hit the brake, and then looked up and saw that you hit the brake just in time to avoid getting a speeding ticket?
Yeah, sure, but I think
Have you
that's
ever
just
done
good
that?
driving. I think that's just good driving.
No, because the first thought was there might be a cop around, and so you check your speed.
Yeah, but it's a safe bet that there's always a cop around.
That intuition, I think, has uh, it's the gateway to the whole psychic phenomena, if there were the lack of a better term. You learn
Well,
you learn to trust in your intuition and then identify when it's intuition, the difference between intuition and imagination.
yeah, but I don't think it's some sort of supernatural ability. I think it's a common
I
human trait.
I think it is a supernatural ability.
I don't think
Like I
so.
said, I think it's like the front door, the gateway to that
Nah.
whole bit.
No, I think that there's just different levels of what we perceive, and some people just don't shut themselves off to that sort of perception. For example, my wife, right? I can sense when it's not uncommon. I can sense when people are near me, even if I thought the house was empty. Like I can sense when people are there. I can sense when someone's close to me, et cetera, et cetera. Or like people can't really sneak up on me because I sense that they're there, and I've always done
Hmm.
that. And my wife's like, "How do you even do that?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, she's like, how do you always know, or how can you sense, like, if they could have none of the cars there and I could sense that they're home or that they're not home or whatever. Or if people are near, I can sense that somebody's near me. Even if I close my eyes, I can tell when they're going to, like, reach out to touch me or whatever, or from
Well,
behind.
even okay, when you close your eyes and somebody moves something in the room or comes into the room, there's an ambient sound that will change. And most people can hear it if they just settle down and listen. So I could be totally blindfolded and I would know when someone comes into the room.
Well, I mean, I can even do it if I'll close my eye. Like, we'll fuck with it. Like, I'll close my eyes and they won't tell me that they're reaching for me or doing anything. And I can tell when they reach for me and I can move their hand out of the way without opening my eyes. Stuff like
Now
that.
that I can't do,
Yeah, I can do all that
but I,
stuff.
but I could tell when somebody's in the room with me. Well, I've had times where I thought that was happening, and I opened my eyes or turned on the light and there was nothing there. So again, intuition, or was I sensing somebody from the other side?
Yeah, I think it's more like you're paranoid. How about that?
Yeah, that could be. Well, like I said, it's a fine line between intuition and imagination, and figuring out how to tell the difference one from the other.
I see with me with the whole sensory thing, I chalk that up to my military training. That's what I think it's from. It's kind of like, so like now, right? For example, now, because because of the environment that I live in at home, for example, I can usually sleep through the night. Like, I have a sense of safety and security, so I don't have to worry about anything. And I don't have to, like, wake up at the snap of, like, a rustling of a leaf or a twig or something like that. Like, when I was in the army, sleeping out in the woods and stuff like that, I could wake up very quickly, very silently, etc., from almost nothing. I don't do that anymore because I don't have to. See, my mind tells me you don't have to worry about something. But if I needed to be on high alert, I'm sure I would be, but I don't need to anymore. So therefore, I've shut off that part of my brain. And now I sleep like a freaking rock. But before, I didn't. So it's just I think to me it's a sensory training thing. I don't know. Maybe. I don't think it's anything supernatural by far, for sure. Although I have surprised people with doing it. It's just like another thing, right? For example, when you go to bed at night, right? And the lights are off and everything, and it's dark, and you go to kiss your wife. Good night. How do you always know where their lips are? I mean, do you like miss? Do you like hit their nose? Do you like have to grab them first to know where their mouth is to kiss them goodnight?
Generally, if they've spoken to you, you got a pretty good idea where they're at, and you know them as well. You know what positions they like to sleep in, and if they're facing you when they're speaking to you or not. That makes a big difference.
Well, let's say you're both
Um,
laying on your backs talking and the lights are out, and then you say goodnight and you roll over. Do you automatically plant one right on them, or do you have to feel around to find them?
no, it's automatic.
Yeah. So, see, I think there's something to say to that too. I think there's something. I don't know if it's a familiarity with that person, or if maybe you just kind of entrap with them. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Like, how do you know? How does your mouth know exactly where to go? When realistically, you would think that you'd most likely just hit something else.
Bump noses by accident. Oops.
Right. But usually, I mean, I think that I would bet that the majority of married couples say that they don't miss. Even if you're okay, so even if if you took yourself out of the familiarity of your own home and put yourself in a hotel with them, it's the same thing. I bet you most people still don't miss. Unless they don't like being married. then maybe they miss, or people that really don't know each other that well. Here's an interesting question that my wife had for me once. She always does that. She'll say things like, do you think, like, for example, let's say that, and it's, I don't know, maybe now that I think about it, it's kind of a weird thing to say, but my wife said to me, she's like, for example, if I was laying in bed and I was asleep and somebody got in next to me, say they're the same size, same weight, same whatever as my wife. How would I know it's her and not her? You know what I mean? Can I tell the difference between, say, her touch on my arm as opposed to the touch of somebody else on my arm?
Well, I guess that too would be another intuition thing, because you see in the movies when uh, people, like, what was that? There was a movie with Michael J. Fox in it where there was a big mix-up, and all there were two or three guys and two or three girls. They were all trying to sneak into each other's room, thinking that there was going to be uh, some sex going on or some shit, and they wound up just missing a couple of the girls. And when the girls came back, they found the two guys in bed together because they had crawled into the bed with each other, thinking that the girl was there waiting for them.
Which movie was that?
And uh,
This was a Michael J.
Secret to
Fox
My
movie?
Success.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I remember that slightly.
yeah, it was a really awkward scene. And then it was, yeah, I can't remember the other actors in the movie.
Yeah, it wasn't that great of a movie. It was all right for
It
the
was
time.
okay.
It was all right for the time. Well, whatever. So what do you think about that? Do you think that if someone of the same size, et cetera, was to sneak into your room, that you would know it was not your wife?
It may take a moment, but yeah, I'd figure it out. It wouldn't take long,
Especially if it was a
especially since,
dude.
yeah, especially since, you go to grab a boob or something and there's no boob there. That's a big indicator.
Or something flops on your leg,
Yeah,
and
that's
it's not a
disturbing.
leg, and it's not a leg, and it's not an arm.
I think I'd punch somebody if
You're like,
there'd be hell to pay.
like
What are
that's
you
not.
doing in
You're like,
my
that's
bed,
not right.
asshole?
That's not right. I kind of like it, but that's not right. Wait, what is that? Give me a stick, quick. No, I don't know. It's an interesting question, though. I think you can tell, though, if somebody, just say even somebody touches your arm, like if you were out somewhere, and someone touches your arm. I think you can tell if it's somebody you know or not know. Not that people are always coming up and touching my arm, but I feel like I have that sort of sensory thing that I'm like, oh, is this somebody that I need to batter, or is this a friend of mine? Speaking of which, when was the last time that someone flopped something on your leg?
I think I spilled food in my lap a few weeks ago.
And after that, somebody flopped something on your leg?
Yeah, food.
All right. Franks and beans?
No, no.
No. So your son is still home.
Yes.
Okay. So how much time have you guys got to spend together?
Um, Enough, I would say. I mean, he's spent a little bit of time with his friends, and he's hung out with his brothers and sisters plenty. I mean, our oldest daughter came home for a weekend over the 4th. And that was pretty nice. And yeah, all in all, it's been a good couple of weeks.
So was his whole unit on vacation, or did he just take time off himself?
No, he just took time off for himself.
Oh, see, they didn't used to let us do that.
Now, normally they don't, but he's he's uh, he's in good with the people that take care of those things. So it made it possible.
So have you had any awkward conversations, like you trying to relate to what he does?
Yeah, some of the things that he talks about, you know how when when a bunch of people in the military get bored and they start doing and talking about really dumb things, and like he had a video of one guy spitting in another guy's mouth because it was some kind of a bet. And so it's like, yeah, for so much money, it's a weird dynamic. But it's like, would you eat a worm for $20?
For $20? I'm sure
Yeah.
I've eaten them for probably not. Even when I was in, I wouldn't do that. But you could always find somebody who would.
That's the idea.
Yeah, it wasn't my thing. No.
They find people who are willing to do dumb shit, and they give them some money to do it, and then they record it,
No,
and
we
they
knew a
laugh at
guy.
them
We knew
later.
a guy who would eat anything. You didn't even have to pay him for it. You're just like, hey, dude, would you eat this? And he did. I think I told you that
Huh.
before. His name was Doodoo. Doodoo Brown. That was his name, Doodoo Brown. And he would eat, anything.
Doo-doo.
He'd take a freaking cake out of the urinal, take a bite out of it.
Oh God, no.
Yeah, one of the grossest things you ever. Well, you probably don't know what I'm talking about, but out on the ranges, back in the day, we had these rifle ranges where some of them they had these big cauldrons, really, of paste in the shack, and a long time ago they used to use that glue to attach the target to the back, the paper target to the back of the regular target, and that glue that just sat out there. It's not like it ever got changed; it just sat in that cauldron all year long. And he came in and they're like, "Hey, doo eat that." And he just scooped it up and sipped on it and took a big old bite out of it. It was fucking nasty.
He's probably gonna die of dysentery
Well, I don't know if
someday.
he's still alive or not, but I mean, and people usually piss in those things and all kinds of stuff because they're like, why not? Might as well. Who knows? You do all kinds of crazy stuff. I just wondered if he'd told any like stories and you're like trying to relate, and he's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Hmm.
Like my dad always used to
I-
do that. He'd always like tell me like stories like when I came back, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about because your experience and my experience are two totally different things.
Now, see, there was somebody else that one of my friends when I was in the Navy who was funny that way, but it wasn't in a gross way. I mean, his name was Giovanni Santiago. I remember that. And the dude, anytime there was downtime, he would just go on talking about whatever and have everybody laughing their asses off. Apparently, he originally uh, tried out to be on the Cosby Show, but he joined the Navy instead. They didn't pick him, obviously, but
Obviously. Huh.
I think they would have done well to do so. The guy was hilarious. He kept us entertained in the worst boredom that I could imagine.
Yeah, but the Cosby Show wasn't hilarious. You know what I mean? Probably not the
Yeah.
right type of, he would have ended up with a rather lame career. Where are those people now? Where are they now?
Well, they're not as famous as they once were, but they're still well off. They're making money.
Are they?
I think so. From that show, yeah. Except
pretty sure
except
all
Bill.
pretty sure all that money went to one person.
Yeah, well, yeah, Bill Cosby's lawyer.
Right. Well, that's where it is now. Well, yeah, that's where it is now. But of course, Bill didn't have to apologize for anything. Just did his own thing. Once you're so old, they're like, "Oh, he's an old man. Who cares?" Regardless of what he did with his pudding pops. Let's see what else. What was I going to ask you? No. My question was this. Basically, like when people tell their stories, like I have this friend, right? She'll tell these just completely lame ass military stories, and her MOS is secretary. So she'll tell me like stories to try to like sound cool, and I'm like, that's not even an interesting story. You basically, to me, you did nothing in the military. You were a secretary. You're trying to relate to somebody who was an airborne infantryman who actually did shit, even not in combat, did a ton of shit. And I'm like, I don't understand your story. Like my dad's stories, not interesting. Like your story's not interesting to me. You're trying to relate to me, but I don't get it. The time you ran a 5 minute mile is not an interesting story to me.
I don't think I could ever run a 5 minute mile.
you're like, well, to me, that's a really interesting story because I can't run a 5 minute mile.
I mean, even in my prime, I could do a 6 minute mile, but I think 5 minutes would have been too much.
Well, clearly, I'm going to have to put you with my father then, and he can tell you stories that you'll be impressed by.
No, that's okay.
No, you don't want to be impressed by any
I
particular story from
I
my father.
probably heard that story before anyway.
It's very possible that you actually may have heard of that story. Yeah, what we'll have to do is one of these days I'm going to have to tell some embarrassing army stories. I might have to get up the courage to do it. One time I actually told one of my most embarrassing army stories at a family dinner. And my parents were quite shocked. So generally speaking, I probably should not have done that. But I was young and impetuous, if you will.
Well, most of the number one most embarrassing story I could think of about me happened while I was in the Navy, but it had nothing to do with my work. It was a drinking
Does
incident
this have to do with that
where I
wand, that the driftwood wand, and how it made its way
no,
to the nether regions of the
no,
dock?
no. This was a totally different group of people.
Is this the
But
vomit story and the girl?
yeah,
Okay. Well, we've all heard that story
yeah.
already, so we've already heard that story.
Oh no, 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 no. It's a
That's
different
a
vomit
totally
story.
different vomit story. Well, that's phenomenal. Have you got a lot of vomiting stories?
No, that was the one and only time in my whole life that I've ever blacked out. There are parts of that day that I do not remember. So,
Huh.
but I remember waking up and it was not pretty.
So what was laying next to you was not pretty, or
No, I woke up sitting on the toilet,
well, that's not so
throwing
bad.
up into my shorts.
That's not so bad as long as your legs weren't numb, I guess. All right. Well, I guess that's it then. I guess we've beat a dead horse. All right. Well, you got anything else to add?
Aren't you proud of yourself for beating a dead horse?
No, because it just seems like at times it's wrong. But hey, I'm also
Why? The horse can't feel it.
well, I'm also not gonna, I don't know. There's probably laws against doing that anyway. All right. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up then for this episode of Beaveman in the Dock, brought to you by Renegade Beaver Studios Mobile here in Marquette. And we'll be back next week. So from the Beaveman,
Well, I figured I'd drop a heads up. School's going to start soon, and I don't know what my schedule is going to be like. I may need to take a break, at least until I get in a groove and figure out, how much studying I'm going to need to keep up. So,
yeah, well, that's fine. I mean, I don't expect a lot out of you anyway. You know how it is.
well, you've got Paper Doc.
Yeah, I got Paper Doc. I got Paper Doc, who's quite hilarious, actually. All right. Well, good. All right. Well, good luck with everything. Well, I'm sure I'll still be putting out an episode every week or two. Coming up on, I think, almost a year of doing it now. So,
Wow. How many shows have we done?
it's got to be close to 50, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Time flies when you're having fun. Man.
Right. All right. Well, then that's it for me from the Beaveman. Saying adios, mooch fuckos.
Crickets, bitches.
All right, so this week's Beaveman in the Dock with the Beaveman and with our guest Tromondae here is going to be a little bit segmented. So there's going to be a segment with me and Doc, there'll be a segment with me and Tromondae, and we might have another segment. Who knows? How you doing this morning, Tromondae?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing pretty well. So you've already done one episode. You like the way your voice sounded, so you agreed to do some more.
Very much so.
All right, so we're going to try to knock out this session so Tromondae can get to work. Here's what I've been noticing. I've been watching this show about some paranormal activity. Are you interested in the paranormal at all?
I used to when it was popular. I think I remember when the show was very first, like when it first came out.
Okay. What's your opinion? Do you think those people are crazy, or do you think there's some goofy stuff that actually happens?
I think both. I think some stuff happens and some crazy people go out and experience it.
Now, you yourself are a fairly religious person, right?
Yes.
Does your particular practice or your religiosity recognize the paranormal?
We believe in like spirits, but not necessarily like ghosts, if you will.
Okay.
But not too much. You don't really hear about it being spoken of a lot.
Okay, let me ask you this question. Does your church recognize, do they ever mention the devil?
Yes.
Okay. So, because some of them don't really mention that at all.
Yeah. Mine mention it quite often.
Okay, well, I was raised Catholic, so they talk about it all the time. So one of the funniest things that I watching this show or this particular show is, they're talking about these things that happen, and then they just happen to know somebody, or somebody knows somebody that has a friend that's a psychic or a paranormal expert or something like that. So they come in and they help them out. And me watching those shows as a Catholic, or not really practicing, but you know what I mean, raised Catholic. the first thing that pops into my mind is, well, you don't go get those people. You go get a priest. I don't understand. I don't understand the concept of like, oh, you got to go find somebody who's not really, they're a psychic or they're a spiritual expert or something like that. The Catholic priests are actually trained in, that's like their thing.
Right.
So that's one of the cool things about, if you will, other than the boy touching, that is one of the cool things about the Catholic Church is that, obviously not all priests, I'm sure, are trained in exorcism, but if you're going to go somewhere, I think the Catholics are probably your go-to people for that sort of thing.
I would agree.
Yeah, so
I would agree.
So that's one of the things that I'm always like, why are they doing that? Go get a priest, for goodness sakes. Lock your children up.
Yeah.
Boys specifically, but otherwise, go get a Catholic priest and try to get some help that way.
Yeah, interesting. And you know what I find interesting, like, and I never really thought about it until we engaged in this conversation, is like, I grew up in a church where like psychics and things like that are like frowned upon. Like that is not something that you're supposed to go and experience. However, in the church we have something referred to as like spirit of discernment, which is pretty much the same thing. People have a foresight about something and they speak on it, but yet in one aspect it's not okay, but then in another it is. But they're literally the same thing.
Yeah, I guess you could be. I guess if you were able to transfer the thoughts or feelings of someone who is deceased or a spiritual entity or like one of the saints, that would be okay. But like you're saying, if we label them a psychic or a what do they call them, like mediums or something like that, then that's different.
Yep.
It's like, oh no, that's different. You can't be one of those.
Yep, you're right. It's that label.
Yeah, it's a labeling thing. Okay, well, so I had the reason why I thought it was interesting and why. So the first story, I'll just kind of run the story by you. The first story is this that we watched was this lady, and she's talking about this experience that they had in their house that they bought, and the daughter was there too. So they interviewed both of them separately, and they were talking about the same sort of experiences, like doors opening or hearing boxes being dragged and that sort of thing. But they talked about their dad or their husband or whatever also, but he wasn't on the show. So I didn't know if he was dead or if he just thought that they were goofy and he wasn't going to be on the show. They never mentioned that. So I got to thinking, is it actually not so much that I didn't believe them, but do you think there's a possibility exists about like shared psychosis or shared, not necessarily being crazy, but do you think that people could have a shared experience without it actually happening because they've tricked themselves into believing that that sort of thing could happen?
That's a good question.
He's thinking, what? It's almost like if somebody plants a seed in your mind about something,
right?
Can you make up the same sort of experiences with your brain, or can you make up almost the same sort of memories? So for example, if you told your daughter now that you guys used to have a dog named Sparky, but you never had one, and you described the dog to her, in a couple of years, she might remember that you guys had a dog named Sparky.
Mm-hmm. I in that aspect, I think that very much so can happen. Were they like in speaking about in detail about what happened?
They were very generic things, like
okay.
We would go downstairs and the basement door would be open, and then my dad, put a special kind of whatever lock behind it, or he put a chair behind it, but they would still go downstairs and the door would be open. But they could never figure out why the door would be open. And then they had something, the only goofy thing they had was like they went down into like the root cellar. And I think this place was actually in Michigan. They went down to the root cellar and they sent the nephew down there because they thought they had heard something down there. So the nephew goes down there. He doesn't hear anything. He comes back up, grabs the two women. He's like, there's nothing down there. They go down there with him, and they said all of a sudden the room filled with this smoke, like this smog or whatever. So that was kind of goofy. But the other stuff that they heard was like, that sounds of someone like dragging a box across the floor or creaking floorboards, or sometimes they would hear like some laughing. There was a really creepy thing when they were renovating the house and they were pulling up the linoleum, and under all this goofy stuff was already happening, but they pulled up the linoleum, and under one of the squares of linoleum was this picture of this old couple, which was really creepy. I'm like, oh, that's really creepy.
Oh.
And so they thought the picture was cool. Like, they like antique stuff, the mom and the dad. So they framed it and hung it up in their house. Yeah, so it was really funny because I was sitting there laughing and I've told Doc this before. I'm like, these people are stupid, you know. And comedians, some comedian, there's a black comedian that talks about it. He's like, black people would never stay in that house.
No, not at all.
He's like, but white people will always stay in the house. And I was sitting there yelling, laughing at the thing too. I was like, that's true too. I said, Mexicans aren't going to stay there either, or else Mexicans would say, hey, listen, mister, if you're going to stay in my house, this is my house, I pay for this house, you're going to get a job. That's what they would do. But white people will always stay in the damn house. And now you find this picture under the linoleum. Let's frame it and let's put it on the wall. I'm
Next to our family portrait.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, and the eyes always looked weird. Like, so they had a psychic come in and cleanse the house with like sage or whatever. And then all of a sudden the eyes changed on the photograph and they looked at peace and they never had a problem again. Yeah. I don't know why you would. Yeah. Anyway. So.
Wow. Yeah, you're right. Of all the times I've seen those shows, I've never seen a black person.
Like, it's never a black person. The black person's like, I moved into this house and I heard what sounded like someone dragging a box across the floor, and I was by myself. That was the last day that I stayed in that house. Actually, I left right then.
It's not. We don't really play around with that kind of stuff,
I don't.
You know?
I watched the show, so you know, like, why are you staying in that house? I don't even understand why you would stay in that house.
Yeah.
Unless it was, I could understand. Let's say, for example, if you felt like it was not a malevolent spirit, maybe. You know, if they were sort of protective, or you felt like you could help them cross over, but still, I don't want something appearing that's knocking my shampoo bottles off the counter, or that appears to me like somebody with a hatchet in their head.
No,
you know, I don't care how in tune you are with the spiritual world, and if they're nice people or nice spirits or whatever, I don't want them looking like, you know, Beetlejuice. And that's not something I want to do.
No, not at all. So do you think when people speak with like mediums that they are actually, the medium is actually experiencing or having a conversation with?
I would say there's a possibility, but there are so many of them that I don't think that possibly is. I think that a lot of them, maybe mediums, think that they actually can do it, and there's enough generic things that we can say about people that have gone before us that will ring true to all of us, because we all have fairly similar shared experiences. But the majority of those people that do that sort of thing, I think, have no powers, or if you will, whatsoever.
That's interesting. You know, and tying it with religion, like I sometimes feel the same way about like pastors and things. Like when they get up and prophesy, they tend to speak in very general. Everyone's having money problems, and that's one of the things they speak about. Right. And then they get this huge reaction from the crowd, and I'm like, but do you all not realize that that's everyone, anywhere, anyone can say that, and you will get that type of response. So sometimes I often wonder like what teaching and counseling and all this that pastors go through to really be able to sit in that position and reign, you know, just as mediums. Like, what did you actually do to go, like how do you possess that? Like,
well, I think that like pastors and ministers, etc., whatever, I think they're just entertainers. At the very base of everything, I mean, what they're putting together a sermon. They're trying to figure out how that sermon will interact with everyone. They have a, you know, I don't know if they've got. I'm sure, like the Catholic Church has a. It's my understanding they have a schedule. In other words, you're going to talk about this Sunday. It's broken down by like 52 Sundays or whatever. This is what, and then they write their sermon based off of that. So it's very regimented. Now, they've got the homily where they take 20 minutes where they talk about whatever in relation to that, what real world, etc.
Yes,
is what they do. But everything else is very regimented. So the subject itself is regimented. You're going to talk about this Sunday. So, but they have to make it entertaining in some way, or else they lose the congregation.
Right.
So to me, at the base of it, and they have got the Catholic Church has their nice outfits, and they've got the music, and they've got the very nice, church. So to me, it's all entertainment. It's not entertainment that I pick, because to me it's very boring, but it is at the base of it entertainment.
I can see that.
There's some funny. Have you ever seen Gran Torino, Clint Eastwood's movie?
No.
Okay, so Clint Eastwood is this old like Marine veteran, and he lost his wife, and she went to church, but he doesn't go to church, and he made fun of the church. He made fun of the priest because he's basically saying your job is just to hold little old ladies' hands, basically. So at the base of it, when you look at stuff like that, it's very easy to be cynical when you start really thinking at the big picture of everything. And when you talk about like where they go and they talk about money and stuff like that, to me, when does faith really soar? When do you have the majority of people actually going to church and everything? Is when there's crisis, because it shakes everyone's faith, and like they have to have something. So if you're poor, you go to church. If you're if you just lost your child, you go to church. If you're sick, you go to church. All those things. But when everything's great, who goes to church? I don't know. Maybe people do, but I would say that the majority of people are looking for something or needing that some sort of fulfillment.
Yeah.
Which again, if you got a spirit haunting your house, I'd be going to church, and definitely. Also, I don't think I'd call a psychic.
No.
No, but perception-wise, do you think that the like extrasensory perception or any of that sort of thing exists? Like, do you have any of those moments where you perceive something, then all of a sudden it came true? Or
I would say something that I have noticed, like within myself, if this ties in, I would have moments where I would have lost something, and I don't know if I pray or ask God to like show me where it is, but I would verbally ask a question, and then within a short period of time, like I can go to that very specific place that I left it and find it, not knowing that that's where I left it. Like something says, Tromondae, go look here. This is where it is, and I go and it's there. And sometimes that freaks me out because I have no idea when or how it got there. I have no idea how it was revealed to me that that's where it was, that's where it is, and sometimes I'm in awe. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I have had moments when I've lost something, or someone else has lost something, and that's when it really freaks me out. When someone says that this is something that they lost, and then I can tell them where they left it, and I have no idea what the specific item is that they're looking for. Like I have no connection to it, but I can help them find it. That's when it really freaks me out.
That's interesting. See, for me, when I look at it, I'm like, yeah, that's all the stuff is kind of cool, and I have a sort of a interest in it because I'm interested in aliens and all that stuff.
Okay.
So, but there's also a little sciencey part of me too that says, oh well, you probably saw it, and because we don't understand the human brain, there's a lag time on recall. Yeah. And all of a sudden you'll get that recall, and then it'll tell you, hey, dum-dum, this is where it is.
Yes.
Or, you saw something, because theoretically, we remember everything we've ever seen or ever done. It's just a matter of how do we recall it, or how is that a specific electrical impulse trigger it again. For example, we're watching this TV show called New Girl, which is funny. And in one of the guy's rooms, he has a picture of a singer. And I was like, oh, that's Jim Croce or whatever. And I think he sings this song. So we're watching the show, and I'm like, oh, does he sing that song or not? So I pulled it up, but he didn't sing the song I was thinking of. But I don't know who Jim Croce is. But I was just like, and that's brain recall. I was like, well, clearly I've seen that same picture before. Yeah. And somebody told me that's who that is. Yeah. So I'm like, so to me, that stuff doesn't, I'm like, it's just a stray memory from something. True. So, which to me says that we probably remember everything we've ever seen or ever done, but we can't recall it until that particular part of our brain dies off from cellular death or whatever. Then there's no way you're ever going to recall it, right? Because it was stored in that area. So, so stuff like that, but there's other things that I was talking about, and people have said this to me before, is like I can sense other people. So like, or even if I close my eyes and I'll have you like stand near me, you could take a swing at me, I know where it's coming from. Or you could reach out to touch me from whatever angle, and I can tell where it's coming from.
You can?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, but I don't think that's weird. I've always been able to do that. So like, or if you could have no cars here, okay, and I wouldn't know if anybody's home or not. Like, you guys could park your cars somewhere else and come here, and I could walk in the door and know that there's people here, even if you guys were quiet in another room.
Really?
Yeah, it's just I don't know. That's I've always been that way. To me, that's not weird. I've always been that way. So I don't know. People, I've had people tell me that different. I said, I think that's part of my Army training. I think most of the people I know in the Army can do that. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. It's the same thing with sleep. Like if you tell me, for example, like if I'm at home and I'm safe and everything and it's my own environment, I can sleep through pretty much anything. But if I was out sleeping somewhere that I'm not aware of, like I can wake up for anything. Like before you touch me, I'll wake up.
Yeah. Do you think your experience in serving has anything to do with that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think because you have to be so cognitively aware of everything.
Right.
But if I can shut it off though too, I'll be like, I don't need to worry about anything. I can just go to sleep.
Does it ever become like exhausting for you?
No. I think that you just had to be so highly perceptive of everything that
Yeah.
you got to be able to get the jump on stuff, I guess. I don't know. But see, I don't think it's weird. I don't think that's strange. Because I'll say something if I'm like, or the kids were like, oh, you scared me. I'm like, well, didn't you know I was here? And they're like, no. I'm like, I don't understand how people don't know that. I'm like, I don't understand how you don't know that something else isn't present at all times.
Have you ever like sensed or felt a spirit?
No, I don't think so.
No.
Every once in a while, I'll catch like something out of my eye that I think is my cat, like my cat Tigger. But then I'll look and I'm like, oh, it's not there. What's really funny though is my wife has said that too. She says she swears she's seen Tigger like out of the corner of her eye.
Wow.
So I don't think my cat is still here, but I'm like, I go, well, that's weird. I think it's just a shared, because your brain fills it in. Like we have no blank spots. So if you go out and you look at the horizon, right? It doesn't drop off. You know what I mean? There's no empty space that you see. All you see is that image.
Right.
And that image isn't necessarily correct either because your brain fills it in. It can't have a spot that drops off. So, for example, if I see something out of the corner of my eye, my brain might just tell me, oh, that was your cat, because I'm used to that memory of seeing when she was around the cat out of the corner of my eye. And I'm like, oh, there's my cat. But then you turn and you're like, oh, there's no cat. But my brain made that up.
Interesting.
That's what I think. I don't really think my cat is running around.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that's not possible, because I like to think that most things are possible. But logically, I sit there and think, because my brain can't make stuff, it can't not have something there.
Right.
So if I see even just a glimmer, of a shadow, or maybe I turned and my shadow was cast that way, my brain says that was I put that little picture of my cat in my head. Even though it's not a full-on picture, and then when I turn, I'm like, oh, there's nothing there. It wasn't my cat.
I never thought about it from that perspective.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure I'm completely wrong. This is all speculation because nobody knows shit about the human brain if you really
True.
want to get down to it.
Very
And once again,
true.
as I'd like to throw that caveat every once in a while for the new listeners, I don't really know what the fuck I'm talking about. That's always important. Everybody should know that it's just all speculation on my part. All right. Well, you got anything else to add?
I don't think so.
No? You good? We got to get it. We got to get Tromondae after work. We had a good little 20 minutes, so.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then, until next time, then I guess I'll say adios, much fuckos, and I'll get this episode out to everybody soon.
I don't speak Spanish, so.
Tromondae says goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Pika pika.